Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show. With the great John Dodds and our marvelous producer Jason Ruck, I'm Tom Pippins, and we are brought to you by Moonlight Graham Modern Dental Benefits. Moonlight Graham, a proud sponsor of the program. Craig Caston, we appreciate you a whole bunch. John Dodds, you've done it again. What a pleasure to connect with the retiring Marquette University Athletics Director, Bill Scholl. He's been a big part of it behind the scenes.
Yeah, Bill's stewardship over the last 10 years has been critical, from hiring Shaka to working with Dr. Lovell. Marquette is definitely 3 or 4 steps higher than they were 10 years ago. And we're just very appreciative of the work he's done, and we wish him the best in his retirement.
He's a true gentleman. Bill Scholl. Bill, 10 years go by quickly. Can you just talk about what's been going through your mind as you look forward to the retirement years, if you will?
Yeah, boy, Tom, you're right. 10 years does fly by. It might not seem it in the moment, but it certainly, in every phase of your life, people keep telling you who have been there before, enjoy every minute because it's going to go so fast. And, from having kids to raising kids to professional careers, it's so true. It always, when you look back on it, seems to go by incredibly quickly. I have truly learned what the word bittersweet means. Leaving Marquette is one of the hardest decisions I've ever made in my life. There's no question about it. On the other hand, making the decision to venture into retirement was one of the easier decisions I've ever had to make. There just comes a time when you're ready to let something go, and family is all important to me. And it's funny. I was talking to somebody about, in this business you miss a lot of your kid stuff growing up, and that's true in a lot of businesses. It's not like we're anything special, but we all work hard and you end up missing a lot of kid stuff. And now I'm beginning to miss grandkid stuff, and it kind of drove home the point to me that I'm going to be 67 soon. Maybe it's time to move on. But Marquette is such a special place, full of so many wonderful people. I will miss it big time. I'll always feel like I'm part of it, but I'm going to miss it big time.
I had a friend who passed at about 95, Bill, and he said, "Tom, celebrate the moment." So that's what you're doing with family, kids, grandkids, and God bless you. I hope you have many years of that. John Dodds, you don't have to know Bill well. You know him better than myself, but you can tell he's a character guy who loves people, who loves to connect with people, who has the best interests of youngsters in mind, young men who are growing on and off the athletic venues. And that's a perfect mix. It made him just a perfect fit for Marquette, wouldn't you say?
It really did. And Bill, are you going to stay in Milwaukee? You're going back to South Bend, or where do you plan on locating?
No, we've actually already purchased a house. We are going to go back to South Bend. That's my wife was born and bred there. We joke that she never left home until we were in our early 50s when I left to go to Ball State in Muncie. And in all reality, it's the first time she lived anywhere other than in South Bend. She went to IU, but she went to the South Bend campus. So, for her, when we left, it was tearing up some pretty big roots. And in all honesty, my dad was transferred there when I was 11. So for the most part, I certainly went to junior high and high school and then college, and then stayed in the South Bend area to start my career. So it really is for both of us going home. We have a daughter, a son-in-law, and a granddaughter who live there. I have a brother who still lives there. So it truly is home. And I'll tell you, it was not an easy decision. We have loved Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a phenomenal city, and it's the first time I've lived in a major urban center. And I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it. In fact, we were out to dinner with some folks last night, and on the way back, I commented again to Julie just how much I'm going to miss the city of Milwaukee. It is such a great place.
When you look back at your 10 years, me from really the cheap seats watching everything, Marquette really was in dysfunction mode. It seemed like when Father Wild and Bill Cords, two kind of the legendary people there, they retired, and then it kind of drifted a little bit. And you came in, and Dr. Lovell came in and just righted the ship. And it's been, can you talk about when you got there and what you were trying to do, and just kind of look back a little bit at your tenure?
Yeah, a couple of things first. Father Wild absolutely embraced me when I came on board. We spent a lot of time together in those early years, and I could never thank him enough for all the help and guidance he gave. Bill Cords and I text during the season at several times a week, and have been doing that for 10 years, and continue to do it in the off season, just not as much. But again, somebody who's such an iconic figure here at Marquette, and was always there, never crossed the line, never tried to tell me how to do the job. Was just there if I ever even just needed somebody to vent with or ask advice of, and was an incredible partner through this whole process. As odd as that may seem, as far away as he lives, was a huge help to me through the process. Walking in the door with Mike Lovell, I mean, he was here a little bit earlier than me, but you just simply couldn't ask for a more inspirational leader. We've become very close friends. He's been a tremendous boss the whole time I've been here. You just couldn't work for anybody better. And, relative to the athletic side of things, not only is he an athlete and a fan, he truly understands the significance and the impact that athletics has in a campus environment. And not all presidents have that. For some, athletics sometimes is kind of either an afterthought or even something they wish they didn't have to necessarily deal with. And that's never obviously been the case with Dr. Lovell. He truly understands the overall impact that a well-run athletics program can have on a campus. It's funny. I've had other people talk about kind of the dysfunction at the time. I didn't come into it feeling that way, to be honest with you. I knew Marquette a little bit from the outside, having been at a rival school for a lot of years. And as a kid growing up in South Bend, I remember seeing Dean Meminger come into our building. So I in some ways go back a long ways with Marquette. I think all both Dr. Lovell and I did was hit the ground running and try to I don't even want to say right the ship, but do the right things and make sure the culture was right, and make sure that we were all kind of rowing in the same direction. It's funny, you hear people talk about it, and it almost seems more complicated. There are so many good people here. I think it was just a matter of wanting to create a culture that would be conducive to tremendous experiences for our student athletes. I mean, that's ultimately all we were trying to do.
Bill, the one thing I learned as an interviewer over many years is that it's difficult to get humble people to talk about themselves. So I know where I'm going with this, but what has given you the most satisfaction in terms of what you and your team have been able to achieve?
Boy, there's a lot of neat things that have happened during my time here, and I don't, who gets the credit and all that. It truly doesn't matter to me. We have a fan base that is just off the charts. We finished 8th in attendance this past year, and nobody who is in a pro market is anywhere near us in attendance, and that's partly thanks to the Bucks. They've been such great partners with us since Fiserv went up, which is kind of my window with the Bucks. I sit and watch our games. I'll be on the road, particularly sometimes, when we're in Chicago. The number of Marquette, the size and passion of the Marquette fan base is truly incredible. One of the other things, you can't run a successful athletics program without a healthy donor base. And we have a whole lot of very generous people who care a lot about Marquette, who fortunately have the capacity to help out when we need help. And I feel really good about having been part of building that group and growing that group, and hopefully leaving behind a group of folks who want to continue to support. And I know they do. I know they'll continue to support the program the right way. So those are a couple of things that come to mind. At the end of the day, it's always about the student athletes. It's why we do what we do. And, I can't point to a specific example, but to watch them come in as freshmen and leave 4 or 5 or sometimes even 6 years later as really well-developed and mature young men and women who are truly ready to go out and make a difference. To know that our athletics programs have had a role in helping that occur for those young people is I mean, it's inspirational when you stop and think of the potential impact that your department can have on those kids. And I don't want to start naming names because there are just so many. I hate to leave somebody out, but how many men and women have we seen come in and you watch them as first-year students and you're like, wow, they've got a long way to go. And then you watch them as seniors and you wish you could sign them up for another 5 years because they've developed in such a great way. Which leads me to another, neat thing about what I got to do for for these 35 years, and that's our coaching staff. At the end of the day, our coaches are who deliver our product to our student athletes, and they are such a critical ingredient in terms of whether or not you're going to have success. And we've had a great fortune here. I've had a great fortune here of working very closely with a whole lot of really, really good coaches. And then shortly behind that would be the administrators. And I feel very good about the team that we built here. Didn't have to change a whole lot. If you look at our senior management group, it's the same people that were here when I got here 10 years ago. They're very talented. They're very caring. They're very passionate. So those are all things I think about. Certainly there are wins and losses. Some losses that are more painful than others, and some wins that are nothing short of spectacular. And those are some of the high moments that I'll have with me the rest of my life.
Of course, so many wonderful programs at Marquette University. Obviously, the men's basketball is out there. Bill, what really touched me, and I think to your point, after this past season, an incredible season came to an end in the Sweet 16, the tears that Oso had hurting for his teammates, his close friends, you could just sense that. And golly, that's a rarity today, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's one of the things I love about the way Shaka is going about this. He is truly making an effort to do this kind of the old-fashioned way, to use an old, probably tired phrase. But to have teams that stick together over 3 and 4 years is getting harder and harder to do. One of my memories will be walking in that locker room after losing that game and seeing the looks on the faces of all of our guys. Oso, Tyler, you go right down the list. The incredible disappointment in the moment, but then as you see them later and they begin to realize what they accomplished, don't ever, in my mind, don't ever scoff at a Sweet 16. There's 360 schools out there trying to play Division I basketball at the highest level, and we finished in the top 16. Pretty darn good. We've had some Sweet 16s come out of our volleyball teams that have been here, and feel the same way about that. Don't ever scoff at reaching a Sweet 16. It's pretty impressive. It's an incredibly competitive landscape out there, and that would be true in every sport. And you have literally 100 schools out there thinking they got a shot at that Sweet 16 level, and they're resourcing their programs and they're supporting their programs in very strong ways to put them in a position to do that. And when you're part of a program that actually makes it happen, it's a pretty proud moment. And in all honesty, I think there's certainly more out there in front of us.
The interesting thing I've observed about Shaka and makes him unique among coaches is he strikes me as being someone almost like a CEO of a .com company, and he goes around and he tries to make the employees feel that they're valued. The players give input. The people around the administrative offices, he seems to get to know people. It's an interesting dynamic that kind of it comes from the top that brings people closer together and really helps the organization.
Yeah, you know what, John? It's so true. He's a phenomenal X's and O's coach. Obviously, he knows he recruits well. He knows how to develop players. He's got all. He certainly checks all of those boxes. but his ability to build relationships and to make you feel like you're an important part of the program, no matter who you are. I think everybody in our department can talk about how he'll poke his head in their door, and he'll take the time to stop and say hello. And he truly, I think, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I truly think he believes there's nothing more important than building relationships. And I couldn't agree with him more. I think all of the success that we have, if it's going to be long-term and sustainable, it's got to come through the healthy development of an in-depth development of relationships with one another. And you can just see him. He does it every day. He does it with his players. He does it with his managers. He does it with his staff. He does it with all of us. Anytime you're around him, you feel like you're an important part of what he's doing. And that goes a long way. That really goes a long way in terms of getting everybody going in the same direction.
Yeah, to that point, you take Dr. Lovell, you take yourself, you take Shaka, three key people at the university, and with humility and all on the same page. How important is that? You referenced it, Bill, to be on the same page as opposed to maybe egos getting in the way and the kind of thing that can happen, human nature in many cases.
Yeah, I think we use the word alignment. Maybe we use it too much, but the alignment here has been nothing short of spectacular, and I would even extend it a further spot up the ladder, and that would be to the Board of Trustees and whoever the current chair of the board is at that point in time. There just is absolutely no hesitation or doubt in anybody's minds about the importance of athletics, specifically the importance of our men's basketball program, the growing importance of our women's basketball program. There's just simply no question about how important all of this is, and it certainly makes the decision making easier. There are always economic issues to deal with. There always will be economic issues to deal with. But if we all know what the end game is, we can all get going in the right direction and help us get there. And that alignment here is really special.
When you look out into the future, what are the things that kind of a long-term plan or issues that Marquette's going to have to deal with, or what would you like to have happen to the program, say the next 5 to 10 years?
The biggest thing, we all know what's coming at us, and at least we know in some ways what's coming at us relative to the economics of college athletics and NIL rights and the ability for both student athletes to capitalize on their NIL rights, but now with what looks like might be coming our way, the opportunity for institutions to be more integrally involved in that. We're all going to have to solve that problem, or figure out how to best take advantage of the opportunity. And I just think it's so, the information around the recently settled case is still coming out. So I think it's premature to sit here and say we got to do A, B, and C. But I do think long term, our industry is going to look a little bit different, and we're going to need leadership to help adjust to that. And again, I started to say problem, and then change to opportunity, and I do feel that way. I think it's going to present an opportunity for those who can be nimble and flexible, and kind of with some foresight. I think there's an opportunity there to even to strengthen and fortify your programs. But it's going to be hard. It's going to be challenging.
Bill, it is refreshing, isn't it, to see what Shaka does in trying to bring people in to grow, stay 4 years as much as possible, transfer portal, not part of his philosophy. Do you believe that in this day and age, this landscape that you're referring to, ongoing and complicated, but yet, as you point out, an opportunity, that Marquette can continue to perform at a high level and be very competitive?
Yeah, I do. First of all, how you go about it, I guess my first answer is we can absolutely stay competitive. Now, if the question is more towards can we continue to sustain the current process and the system that Chalk has put in place, again, for me, it's a resounding yes. I have the good fortune of getting to know those student athletes, getting to see them at practice frequently, getting to see them when they travel. And you can just see the love and the bonds they have, not just with each other, but with our coaching staff, and certainly Shaka is a leader of that. We're going to have to be engaged in the NIL concept for sure. But I do believe that the relationships that we build are going to make it possible for us to actually think about having 3 and 4 and even 5-year guys in our program. And I do think that can still work. And I don't want to, I can't talk about all the other schools in the country, but I certainly believe it can work at Marquette with this basketball leadership, and specifically Shaka. I absolutely think it could work.
Bill, I've admired your work from afar, and I've always considered the Marquette athletic director's position to be the worst job in Milwaukee. And the reason why, it's one, you have to step up when things are bad, and you stay back and not get credit when things are going great.
Yeah, John, I don't disagree. I disagree when you say worst job in Milwaukee. I think I have one of the best jobs in Milwaukee. But you're right. I mean, the job does call for you to step up when things are hard, and at least my management style is to step back when things are going well. And Shaka mentioned this the other day. The head coach probably deserves or gets too much blame when it goes poorly and too much credit when it goes well. And there's probably some of that's true about an athletic director as well. But I will say this. I think one of the biggest long-term issues around leadership is ego. And, we all have it, and we can't, some people I think handle it better than others. We all certainly have an ego, but I do think in our world, in the athletics industry, which is really the only one I can talk about in depth, being able to minimize, suppress, whatever term you want to use, your ego, I think is important. I think it's really important when it comes to both ends of the spectrum, the hard end and the fun end. I think ego can really destroy a culture very quickly. And, Shaka talks about the entitlement, equation, and I couldn't agree with him more. Ego, entitlement, those are the kinds of things that can cause a culture to come off track.
Bill, I think that the best leaders are servant leaders who put people in a position to win. And my guess on your part is servant leadership has always been important to you, be it at Notre Dame, Ball State, and certainly at Marquette.
Yeah, Tom, no doubt about it. I have always, as far back as interviews I was involved in decades ago even, I've always talked about how I think servant leadership is the best form of leadership. I worked with Coach Holtz a little bit at Notre Dame, and one of his favorite lines was, "You can accomplish anything if you don't care who gets the credit." And I couldn't agree with that more. It should never be about the credit. My job, in all reality, my job is to make sure our teams have the resources they need to go out and accomplish things they want to accomplish. And so my job isn't to take credit. My job's not to, most of the time, not to be out front. Our coaches should be in my mind, our coaches should be the public facing or the public face of our athletic teams, not the athletic director. My job is just to make sure they have what they need to succeed. And I think that's an important point of differentiation. But I agree with you. I would certainly define myself, I hope others would too, as a servant leader. I do think it's the purest form of leadership.
Bill, they say when you leave, people will say, well, what do you miss? Don't you want to go back? Don't you? Is it accurate to say you will miss the people most and certainly try to stay connected to a degree, but not the way it is now and the way it has been for 10 years?
Yeah, and Tom, that's been my experience with each time I've moved on to a new school. One of the cool things about college athletics is there are really special people all around it. And that's why I'm confident that, given some of the challenges that we're currently in, I'm totally confident that we're going to get through it as an industry, because we have so many smart, talented people who are in it for all the right reasons. But yeah, missing the people is always the hardest part. I referenced being out to dinner last night. It was with, somebody that my wife and I have gotten close to during our 10 years here. And I commented to him that there were certainly a handful of people from each of my stops that I have absolutely stayed in touch with. And last night was dinner with somebody who will be part of that growing list of people I text and call and stay in touch with. So, there are so many great people here at Marquette. I undoubtedly will miss the people. Leaving the business, I will miss the competition as well. When I went from one job to another, you just picked up new competition. You didn't leave it behind. I will miss being in the heat of competition. The game, there's nothing like the highs and lows of the games. There's nothing like it. And in some ways, that's irreplaceable. But at some point, you also have to move on and let somebody else have that pleasure.
Kind of a cautionary, not necessarily a warning, but I've observed that both Bill Cords and Father Wild retired from Marquette, and then they both got the Brett Favre Award by coming back and returning from retirement. So I'm just saying that we wish you the best in your retirement, but if you do come back, it will not surprise us.
Well, it's nice of you to say that. I fully expect to be back, but as a fan, a very, very loyal fan, and to even be mentioned in the same sentence with Father Wild and Bill Cords is humbling, to be honest with you. There's two icons that came back.
But I do sense that, this has been an amazing run. You and Julie talked over the many years, the decades, but I'm ready.
Tom, you're right. People always said, my mentors always said, you'll know when the time is right. And I do know that the time is right. So you're right. And some of the stress has already begun to lift, although I'm still plenty to do in the last 60 days. We got some stuff we got to get done. But it is time, and I am very comfortable with that and excited about whatever the next phase is.
We thank Mr. Bill Scholl. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we have. And we want to remind you that this is the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show with John Dodds, Jason Ruck, our producer. I'm Tom Pippins. We are delighted to be with you, always Golden Eagles fans. Brought to you by Moonlight Graham, Modern Dental Benefits. Moonlight Graham, a proud sponsor of this Hoops program. JD, you've got an amazing website, buddy.
It's MarquetteHoops.com. If you want to see an archive of this show or past shows, just go in the left-hand margin. If you want to be put on our newsletter, please drop your email address on the right-hand side. Maybe do it twice. Sometimes it takes twice to get it done, but you can be kept abreast as to updates as recruiting and future guests on shows.
For JD and Jason, I'm Tom. Thanks for being with us, everybody. God bless and go Golden Eagles. See you next time.